Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Music Podcast. Once again, we're sitting in with me is Mr. Art Alexakis. Art has been the frontman of the rock band Everclear for more than 30 years now, where he has recorded 9 studio records, nominated for a Grammy, millions of records, more than a dozen charting singles. He's played thousands of shows around the world. Out of those many thousands of shows, Art and Everclear decided to roll tape on one of them. It's September 8th, we got from Sunset Blvd Records a record called Everclear Live at the Whisky A Go-Go. Art, thanks so much, man. I appreciate you.
Good to see you, Scott. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. Yeah, fall is coming and I'm feeling good. It's a refreshing thing, man. That heat was
It's
brutal.
I know it's nice, man. I don't know where you're at, but it's right now on the East Coast. I can see the trees just about to turn. Every night it has that fall crisp in the air. It might be a little warm during the daytime, but it gets crisp at night and in the morning. I dig
It's
it. It's
yeah, me
it's
too.
so much better than touring in the summertime, dude.
I
I
bet.
swear.
I can't even
Especially
imagine it.
especially for a guy like me with MS.
Hmm.
Hot is not good. Hot is not good for me.
Really.
And yeah, it's
Yeah.
they used to use heat. They used to do what they call the hot water test to get see if symptoms came out on people
Ah,
who had MS back in late 1800s, early 1900s. Pretty
okay.
barbaric. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. That's yeah. So this is that's great, man. It's great that it's cooling down and how you feeling? It's gotta be difficult. You're on the road. I noticed you got 4 nights in a row. It's gotta be rough touring.
Eh, it's rougher. It's rough for anyone. I mean, even if I was in perfect health, I'm
Right.
61, it's
Yeah.
like I've been doing this for a long time, but what else am I going to do? This is my dream. I still love doing it. We all love playing music, playing these songs, and you know, being of service to people who want to hear this music. And I love it. And part of, I've been sober for 34 years. So being of service in that way and in many other ways
Yeah.
is very, very much a part of my program for sure.
That is, and we appreciate you once again, because we love having you out there and seeing the band, and it's great to have you still going and doing your thing, man. It's way cool.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. You were diagnosed in 2019 with MS,
No, no,
right? No?
2016.
Okay. Okay.
I can't,
2016.
I came out with it in 2019.
Okay.
It
Okay.
says that in the letter that I was April of 2016. And
Okay.
then in 2019, I'd written a song called Hot Water Test about my MS, and it was going to be on my solo record. So before that came out, I wrote a letter to fans, and it went viral. I put it on social media, and it went viral, and we did interviews with
Yeah.
Rolling Stone and Variety and Billboard and TV shows and stuff, just talking about it. Um, and that was about the time I think, you know, Christina Applegate was diagnosed, and Selma Blair was diagnosed as well, right in that area. And it's just there's a lot of attention about it. Um, it's
Hmm.
it's a nasty disease, man.
Yeah.
It's just nasty.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, it's great that you brought awareness to that too. You helped bring awareness along with those other people and we don't think about it much if we don't have it. And when you see somebody like yourself that's on the road and doing this thing, you really it's great for us to absorb that and really understand what you're going through. It's not easy.
It's not easy, but I mean, life isn't necessarily supposed to be easy. I think adversity is what makes us better at what we do, better people. It's like I grew up a rough life, so I had to work really hard and I had a lot of adversity, but it put a fire in my belly. Now with my teenager, my youngest daughter, um, she doesn't have that same kind of adversity, but she does have adversity from anxiety, depression, OCD behavior, and that's putting a fire in her belly to be able to do what she wants to do.
Yeah.
And but I believe that doing the tours, flying out, we do a lot of flyaway dates, probably 50 to 60 a year. And those are hard.
Yeah,
They're
man.
hard doing that. And even in the best of circumstances. But I believe that if I wasn't doing that, if I wasn't going out and playing every night, and I wasn't, I believe my acuity would, my memory and all that stuff
Right.
would be way worse off. And physically, I'd be way worse off if I was just sitting around waiting for royalty checks to
Right.
live on, which
Right.
I could do. But
Right.
I'd rather, I'm also building a legacy for my family when I'm not here anymore.
Yeah.
Because MS isn't going to kill me, but it's going to put me in a wheelchair someday.
Yeah.
Someday.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's we think about you, man. And
Thanks,
that's
brother.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's talk about this record. Live at the
Yes, sir.
Whisky A Go-Go, man. Now the whiskey, I'm in Chicago. I remember the whiskey, 80s, 90s even. It's the place. It's it's the church of rock and roll. Uh,
Go, Going back to the early 60s, maybe even the late
right.
50s. I mean,
The
it was
Doors
it
playing
was
there,
the
and yeah,
Doors with a house band.
yep.
I mean, so many bands have done live records there. And me growing up in LA, I had never played there. I had hung out there with friends. I'd gone to see bands there. I gotten into fights there, had sex backstage, had blackout, just sold drugs, did drugs, but I'd never played there. And so when we got the chance to play there, even though it was a pretty severe underplay for us, I wanted to do it to end the 30th anniversary. And then when Sunset Boulevard Records reached out and asked if we wanted to do a live album of it, it just made a lot of sense.
Yeah,
So
totally.
it's like the stars align sometimes, and you just kind of go with it.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's great to have a show at the Whiskey because that's just, and this record has, did you do anything in the production? It's crunchy, man. It punches you in the face. It's so sharp. It's a punk rock record. And, I think of Everclear as kind of a punk rock band. Uh,
Mm.
you know,
I grew up with punk rock that you didn't have to fit into this. Like a lot of bands that were punk in the 90s were like, this is punk and nothing else is punk. And that's not what punk was all about. Punk was like, could be the B-52s to the Sex Pistols to the Clash to the Damned to Devo. Devo's probably more punk than anybody. I
right. They
mean,
do whatever the
they
hell
were
they
doing
want.
they were doing shit that nobody even dreamt of. If you talk to any old school punk rocker, they're like, Devo is the shit. That's punk rock. And well, I've always had that punk rock attitude. But I love big, huge guitars too. Um, so we're kind of a cross between a punk rock and hard rock band with a singer-songwriter. That's what we've always been. That's
Yeah,
what I am.
yeah,
And I it just like be recording as far as the production goes. I brought in Jim Kaufman, who's a friend of mine, who's a great engineer producer, and he co-produced it with me and recorded and mixed the record. And there's not a lot of tuning or a lot of pro tooling or any of that crap on it. You can hear off notes when I sing. Um, that's rock and roll, man. It's
totally.
like I don't think there's anything that really pokes out, but it's not perfect sounding like records now are very like just everything's melodyne or auto tuned right to the point that it just doesn't sound like rock and roll,
Right.
you know? And
Yeah.
it's funny because you listen to the classic records that me and you grew up with, that we grew up with,
Mhm.
man, that shit is sloppy and
Yep.
and tuning and everything else, and it sounds great. Listen to a Led Zeppelin record, you
Yep.
know.
Yep.
Listen to a Who record.
Yep.
Um, it's awesome, And
Yeah.
I'm glad you like the record because I love it, man. I love the guitars sound big and bright, and
Oh,
the drums are pounding. I think the vocals sound good. The crowd sounds, it sounds like we're in a big club, you know. It is what it is. It's a great document of one show. And you know, like back in the day when people would do live albums, they would record different songs from different shows,
right.
and then they would take them to the studio and they would add crowd sounds and they would add new tracks. And there's
Yeah.
none of that shit. Man. It's just this is what you see, what you see, what you get, what you
Yeah.
hear, what you get. It's live without a net. We've never used tracks or beats or added vocals or we don't do that.
Yeah.
We're a rock band.
Yeah, that's cool. And it puts me in the venue. It really does. You listen to this thing and it's like you said, it sounds you can hear the venue. It's cool. It's you can almost hear the guy next to you, screaming. It's
You can hear glasses clinking and shit.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, and like and girls giggling and people screaming and my wife was at that show and and she said it was just so packed you couldn't move.
Yeah.
And they put in 150 people over the legal limit at least.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was exciting. It was exciting. It was a lot of fun. And you know what? We videotaped the whole thing, and we're going to release the videotape later. Later
That's
after.
awesome.
Yeah. So you'll be able to see the whole album like one show. It's going to be great.
That's just awesome, man. Well, that's just so cool. And I think about classic shows, and I just watched a documentary on Woodstock, the '99 show. What's your memory of that? I have to ask you. That was such a disaster. How was that for you guys?
Well, for one thing, let's just celebrate the fact that documentary they did on it.
Yeah,
Every band they mentioned, just about every band they mentioned in a negative connotation,
yeah,
right? They didn't talk about us, and I'm like, thank God, because because we had a great show. We had a wonderful show.
okay,
It's online. You can see it on YouTube. You
awesome.
can see the whole show on YouTube. We're dressed stupid, but I think we sound good. And the crowd listening to there was about almost 600,000 people at the gig, but half were at our stage, half were at the other stage. But what everyone told me is that there was more people at our stage than at the other stage for that show. So they estimated it was a little over 300,000 people, and they're all singing Santa Monica. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
That's a great feeling, man. It's got to be great.
Yeah, it's amazing. You just can't. It's like having a kid. You can't explain it to anybody unless they have it as well. You can't explain it.
It's awesome. It's awesome. Two new studio tracks on the record: "Year of the Tiger,"
Yep.
been out for a little
Yep.
while, and "Sing Away."
Right.
Sing Away, excellent stuff. They already sound like two great classic Everclear songs. You got some social commentary in there. You mentioned Nirvana. That lion in a Nirvana shirt, and I hear that Boys of Summer reference, the Don Henley reference. That's way cool.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, thanks for picking up on the Don Henley thing. A lot of people haven't picked up on that. But yeah, I mean, it's talking about, MAGA hats and and stuff like that. I like a lot of people, I just got fed up with that whole MAGA QAnon,
Right.
just blind yourself, don't look up mentality. And I wrote a song about it, and I was talking to a friend of mine who's a singer. I can't name him, but who's a singer of a big punk rock band that you've heard of for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, dude, so yeah, it's kind of a protest song. He looks at me and goes, "Get the fuck out of here! You can tell yourself all day that's not a protest song, Art. That's you trying to pick a fight. That's a fight song. That's you trying to start shit." He goes, "I know you, brother. I've known you for over 20 years. you're not protesting anything. You, you're trying to pick a fight.
There you
And my wife's sitting there going, "Yep,
go.
that's my guy."
I love it, man. I love it.
Yeah.
It's way cool. You're the Tiger, one of my favorite Everclear songs now. I love that song. It's
Thanks.
yeah, excellent stuff. Excellent stuff. Uh
And Sing Away was originally written for my solo record that came out in 2019.
yeah.
And I put it on there, and it's more of an acoustic version. Um, but even then, it felt like an Everclear song. And there's a few songs on that album that I could see us re-recording and reinventing, reinterpreting through Everclear
Cool.
somewhere down the line. But this one it just came out. It just came together so easy. The band picked it up so easy, and it just made a lot of sense. And um, when we recorded it with Jim Kaufman at his studio in Santa Monica, and it just it just came together really, really, really easy.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it sounds like that. And when we did the video for it about a month ago, like 2 weeks, 3 weeks before uh, the tour started, before the album came out, like 2.5 weeks before the album came out, and that just came together great as well.
Yeah.
And I think it's an important message, and it's just something that I'm just glad that we could be a part of. It talks about suicidal ideation, and team building, and it's just something that I think anyone who has kids, especially in this day and age,
Yeah.
you're gonna run into it, whether it's your kid or someone else's kid. Um, it's mental health is just something that we can't sweep under the rug anymore. We got to talk about it.
Yeah.
We got to put light on it, and decriminalize it, and destigmatize it, so
Mhm.
that it's something we talk about doing, like going to the doctor, or
Yeah.
getting a tune-up on your car. It's
Yeah.
taking care of our mental health should be something that we um, just naturally do, and without the stigma and the drama. Okay, I'm done soapboxing about it.
Yeah.
I
No,
just hate it.
that's so true. And I think this generation gets that a little more.
They do. They do.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
a great thing. And I hope that keeps progressing that way.
Yeah, it's so much better than we grew up. It's like you didn't talk about stuff like that. I
Right.
mean, you just didn't. The stigma, and you just didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
And now, my daughter's school, it's almost like a badge of honor to be on medication,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Well, you're taking care of yourself. That shows that you're
yeah,
taking care of yourself, I think is what
yeah.
it is. And yeah.
That's how I look at it. I
Yeah.
love when people are like work on themselves, whatever they're doing, whether it's, you know, Uh, like I love when seeing older people with braces. You know what? They're doing that for themselves, man. It's something they want to do. They got to a place where they can afford it. That shit's expensive.
Yeah.
I know. I
Yeah.
put them on 3 people. I
Yeah.
know.
Yep.
I know they're expensive. And I just love it when people take their time, spend their time and their money and their resources to make things better in their life for them, and whether it's therapy, or they do things that give them joy, or they join, encounter groups or whatever it is. It's just, the more people talk about that, the less the shadows are going to be creeping around, making people, because the bad things happen in the shadows. Bad things happen in the dark when
Yep.
people don't talk about it.
Yeah.
And we got to get rid of that.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Uh,
2019, you do the Sun Songs record. What was the decision to do the solo album? Did you enjoy it? Will we get another one?
I loved it. No, you will not get another one. Not like that. I mean, if I did one, I'd do it with other musicians.
Yeah.
That'd be fun. But I don't want to do the same thing twice. I did it once. I always wanted to do a record with me playing all the instruments. It was a little bit more of a challenge as far as playing the drums, because I can play the drums, or at least I could before MS, but my right leg doesn't do what I want it to do. So I can't do a kick like that. So I had to do it by hand, and like a big bass drum, I'd hit that, and then I hit a snare, and I do it like that, and it was cool. And then I do some sort of shaker thing, and it sounds a little disconnected, but I think it adds to the flavor of the record that it makes it sound like itself. So yeah, I wanted to do that, but I did it, and I'm really proud of it, and I don't want to do it again.
Yeah, it's good. That's great, man. We got it, and we love it. And yeah, that's good. That's good. Moving on,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
You got Molly's Lips on this record. You closed the show with it. Uh, Not a Nirvana song, a Vaseline song, but it is a Nirvana song, isn't it? You say on the album, I know
Well,
you didn't write it,
that's
but this is Nirvana.
yeah.
Tell me the impact of Nirvana to you, because I think of you as a peer. You came out around the same time. Maybe you didn't have the impact that they had.
Little after, little. No, no, no.
Yeah, right,
I mean, we were touring. My band Colorfinger was touring. We played a lot of the venues they played. They'd be there before us or after us, but they were tapped into something that other people weren't. And their record Bleach and their singles, their Sub Pop singles were great, but nothing compared to um you know what happened on Nevermind. Nevermind was just one of those records that there's not a bad song on it.
right.
There's not a not great song on it. It's just one of those legendary classic rock records. And I heard that from the beginning. And they opened the door for a lot of us, to be able to do music, not necessarily that sounded like them, but that wasn't metal, because it was still like that was still dying out. Butt rock metal
Right.
was still dying out. As a matter of fact, all those people and all those bands hate Kurt Cobain so bad. They used to like I used to get confronted by, I don't want to name names, but I get confronted by him in Hollywood because they thought it was Kurt Cobain. I go, the guy's been dead for like 6 years, right? Right?
Yeah, yeah.
6, 7 years at this point. And they're like, yeah, but you're ruining music. You ruined real rock and roll. I go, well, I beg to differ. I think what we're doing is real rock and roll. So, and it's funny because about 20%, 20 to 25, some cases more, percentage of the kids are people that are coming to our shows are young kids that are just glomming on to 90s rock because they feel like it's the last vestige and the last example of real rock and roll. And a lot of them end up liking Everclear, probably because of the lyrics.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, I noticed a band.
Sure than my singing voice.
There's a band in Milwaukee. Their Telethon is their name. They got an album called "Swim Out Past the Breakers." So I mean that influence that you have is pretty major.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And they're not like you, but I mean, there's definitely an Everclear influence in their stuff. So it's great to see newer bands, that take notice. Younger people take notice of that legacy. It's great. It's awesome.
Yeah. It's really great, and I agree. It was a great time to be a part of the 90s. There's so many different types of bands,
Yeah.
but most of it was big guitars, and I love guitars. Hearing guitars on the radio again is very exciting to me. And people are like, "So what makes you alternative?" I go, "Really? If you ask me, nothing. We're a rock band,
Right?
we're a rock band.
That's
We're
good.
a rock band that is the sum of its parts." And I grew up in the '60s and '70s and with rock, classic rock, and pop, and AM radio, and then hip hop and punk rock and new wave and early alternative, like the Replacements and REM, and then
Hmm.
Pixies, and then Jane's Addiction, and bands that just kind of pushed everything in a different direction to
Yeah.
where it's at now. And all those bands influenced all the bands of the '90s. We all grew up in the '70s,
Yeah.
listen to AOR rock radio. you know.
Yep.
So it's there's nothing that's its own outlier or island of its own making. We're all related in some way, shape, or form to something else.
Yeah.
And
Cool.
that's one of the sad things I think about a lot of contemporary music I hear. It doesn't seem like it's paying attention to what came before. They're just kind of looking at what the guy or the gal to the left of them is doing, and they're trying to emulate that.
Yeah.
And it just makes for a really shallow gene pool when it comes to music.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Totally.
All
Uh,
right,
yeah. Go ahead.
all right, brother. I got another interview coming in. We got to
Okay.
wrap it up.
All right, man. What's the biggest reason for your longevity, man, and the success?
I'm just a pissy old man. I refuse to go home and play nice. I'm not going to take my toys and go home. I'm going to take your toys and play with them wherever I want to play.
There you
That's why
go.
I'm still around. That's what I'm doing. I just, all joking aside, man, I just love doing what I'm doing. I get to play guitar in a rock and sing in a rock and roll band. I'm 61. Who does that? When we were kids, 61 was in like the rest home, right?
I
That's
love
like
it, man.
senior,
Yeah.
senior citizens, man.
Yeah.
We're not. I refuse to be a senior citizen. I'm out there going to do it until they take it away from me
Man,
and let them try.
I love it, man.
All right,
Art, thanks.
all right, brother.
Thank you. See you on the
All
road.
right, Scott.
All right. Take
See
care.
ya. Take
Bye.
care. Bye.